From Egypt, God led the Hebrew people to a mountain in a desert called Sinai. It was here God said that if the Hebrew people obeyed him, then they would be blessed as his treasured possession, and they would represent him to all the nations of the earth. The people said they would do whatever God asked. And so it was with lightning and thunder and smoke and fire. God descended upon the mountain, and Moses went up the mountain to meet with God. On tablets of stone, God wrote laws by which to live and be blessed. He gave them to Moses to give to the Hebrew people. It was a sacred trust, a holy calling, for these laws were the ways of God.
Now God knew that because of the sin that had infected humankind, the people would not be able to keep these laws. So God told Moses how to build a sacred place where his presence would dwell among them, and the people could bring animals to be slain as offerings for sin. The blood of the animals would be as a covering, so that God would not look upon their sin.
By the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me.
But while these sacrifices covered sin, they did not take away the sin.
In time, the Hebrew people filled the land of Canaan, which God had promised to their fathers. Over time, they developed a strong sense of identity with many traditions. In the main city of their land, Jerusalem, they built a sacred place known as the Temple. It was here they offered sacrifices to cover their sins.
For over 1,000 years, the Hebrew people attempted to live as God had commanded them, but many times they drifted away from God, sometimes even following false gods. When they did not turn back to God, he would discipline them, often by sending a foreign nation to invade their land and rule over them. The Hebrew people would then acknowledge their unfaithfulness and call to God for deliverance. God would then raise up a leader to free the people from their oppressors, and the people would renew their commitment to live according to the ways of God.
From blessing to bondage, to blessing to bondage, over and over, again and again. The Hebrew people had been called to show the world what God was like. But because of the sin that infected the world, they could not walk in the ways of God without falling. In the Garden of Eden, God promised to send a deliverer. Through Hebrew prophets, God gave hundreds of promises concerning this deliverer, who would one day conquer Satan, sin, and death forever. In the temple, the smoke from sacrifices ascended day after day, year after year, generation after generation, giving the Hebrew people a constant reminder of humankind's need for the deliverer. But when would he come? How would he come? By now, some must have wondered if he would come at all.